This video is to allow you to correct your homework for section 5.1.1. First thing they want you to do is find the missing values on the diagram and assume that the lines are evenly divided. So what you see is that we have basically a percent ruler where it's divided into 10 sections, and this is 100%, meaning the whole thing. So for A, what we know is that 4 sections is equal to 144. So the question is 2 sections would be equal to how much? Now you could set that up as a proportion, or you could say, 144 over 4 equals unknown amount over 2. You could think about it dividing by 2. Either way, you're going to get 72. For B, what we see is the bottom is showing the percents, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections for B. So 5 sections at 10% each would be 50%. For C, we have, again, the percents part, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, so that would be 40%. And that appears to be it. Now, they do have here some information that will come into the next problem, but make sure for these you have some work. For 510, a fish tank is holding 80 gallons of water and it's 55% full. We have to make a drawing, which is basically what they did here, and then how many gallons are in the tank now, how many more will be needed to fill the tank. So what we see is that 55% full is the case for what we have for water, but the tank will hold 80 gallons. So I'm going to move this over a little bit because we need to be able to see that the full amount of gallons of the tank, 100%, is equal to 80. So the question is, if 100% is 80 gallons, what will 55% be? And again, there's more than one way to do this. One way we could do it is to say 55%, and we don't know how much that's holding. And then across from percent will have to be a percent, which is 100%. And that's equal to 80 gallons. So one way we could do it is to set it up as a cross product in this way. Percent across from percent, gallons across from gallons. The unknown amount of gallons is 55%. The known amount of gallons is 100%, is 80 gallons. And then you could do your cross products, meaning you could multiply diagonally 55 times 80, and then divide by your third value, which is 100. Okay, that would be one way to get to the answer. Another way you could do it is to say to yourself, okay, I can see that 80 gallons is 100%, so that means basically each set of 10% would be 8 gallons. In other words, I could divide by 10 both parts here. So if 8 gallons is 10%, then 55% would be 5.5 times that. That would be another way to do it. Either way, what you end up finding is 44 gallons are in the tank right now, which means it's going to take another 36 gallons to fill it up completely. Now, if you found a different way that also works mathematically and makes good mathematical sense for you to solve it, that's fine too. But again, make sure you're showing some work here. Here we are filling in missing numbers in the number sentence. So 5/8 times a giant 1 of 3 over 3 would equal what? Well, we would multiply across. 5 times 3 is 15. 8 times 3 is 24. So 15 24ths. Here we're saying 15 times what equals 60. So the bottom part of that giant 1 would have to be 4. And then 9 times that 4. Because again, if the bottom number of the giant 1 is 4, the top number of the giant 1 needs to be 4. So the 9 times 4 would give us that missing number of 36. 20 times what equals 110? Well, if you didn't know that, you could take 110 and divide by 20. And what we get is 5.5. And then 7 times 5.5. Because again, if the bottom number of the giant 1 is 5.5, the top number has to be the same. 7 times 5.5 gives us a missing value of 38.5. Here it would seem a little bit tricky because 100 times what value equals 60? Again, you might think, well, is that even possible? Yes, it's going to be a decimal. So 100 times what equals 60? It's 0.6, 6 tenths. But you could also have gotten it by taking 60 divided by 100. That would have gotten you that answer if you didn't know it. And then, of course, if that's the bottom for the giant one, it has to be the top for the giant one. 44 times that gives us 26 and 4 tenths, 26.4. What strategies did you use for B, C, and D? Well, basically, the strategy, pardon me, that you should have used was that you were dividing. You had to figure out, 15 times what equals 60, and one way to do that is to take 60 and divide by 15. You had to say 20 times what value is 110, so take 110 divided by 20. Now, they want you to do a proportions web for the next one. Clifford works 40 hours per week. He's working as a laboratory technician, and he earns $453.60 for each week of work. So, for the proportions web, again, what do we need for proportions web? First of all, we need to know what is he earning per hour. So we're going to take the amount of money he makes, divide by the number of hours, and what we find is he is making $11.34 per hour. That will then be our constant of proportionality. Then the next thing we have to do is to create a little table or chart. Well, if he works 0 hours, T for time, 0 hours, he would make $0. A probably stands for amount. We also know that since he's making $11.34 per hour, if he works 1 hour, he's going to make $11.34. You could also have added this value into that table or chart as well. Then you need to be able to make a graph. Now, again, the graph that they make for their proportions web is fairly simplistic. They really should be adding a little more details to this. First of all, it should have a title. Secondly, the bottom is going to be time, but again, they could have labeled that. The side is going to be how much money he makes, but they could have labeled that. And then what they did is they just took the two values that they had here in their table and graphed it. So 0, 0, and then 1 and $11.34. Again, you could have also added 40 hours and the $453.60, but that would obviously make that graph significantly larger in terms of how much space you have to use. You only need two values to create a linear graph, so that is adequate. And we do connect the line, we connect the dots because both time and amount of money that's earned can be expressed as a decimal. It does not have to be a whole number. Lastly, for proportions web, you need a formula. So the formula is take the amount of time that he works, multiply it by $11.34, and that will give you the amount of money he earns. So this would be the formula. Again, they sometimes call this a rule. Rule and formula are the same thing, but they should have added to it where they said, what is T representing? It's representing time. What is A representing? It's representing the amount that is earned. Here you have to simplify. For A, I would want to see that you got common denominators. So the least common denominator would be 15. Multiplying this first one times 5, top and bottom, would give you 10 15ths. Multiplying this by 3, top and bottom, would give you 12 15ths. That would be 22 15ths, but 22 15ths is a fraction greater than 1, so we'd usually change that to a mixed number, 1 and 7 15ths. Again, make sure you're showing the work, showing the fractions with the common denominator. Here you do not have to because multiplying fractions does not require a common denominator. And there doesn't seem to be any simplifying you can do. So you simply multiply across. 4 times 2 is 8. 5 times 3 is 15. And then here, again, I should see some work. First of all, I should see that you rewrote it because it's subtraction of an integer. So you would change that to keep, 4/5. Change the subtraction to addition. Change that negative sign to positive, and then add. And I should also see then that you've changed it to common denominator, which again, least common denominator would be 15. So multiplying the by 3 top and bottom would give you 12 15ths. Multiplying this by 5 top and bottom would give you 10/15. Again, you're going to get 22/15, which again is a fraction greater than 1. Should be 1 and 7/15 when we make it into a mixed number. So make sure you're showing steps for A and for C.